In this part of the sheet modeling lesson, we will explore operations for deforming sheet blanks. We'll add a sketch of our future sheet. Choose the XY plane. Create a rectangle. Specify dimensions 200 and 100. Finish creating the sketch and apply the sheet metal command. Select our sketch and set a thickness of 2 mm. OK. Change the display mode. For the jogging operation, add another sketch on the top face of our sheet. Draw a line crossing the sheet. Finish creating the sketch and go to the jog command. Select the created line in the face to create the jog. In the operation menu, we can change the side. Also specify how to set the angle of the bend. Enter or change the angle itself. Set the type of radius and its value. For example, 10 mm. Also specify the method of forming the bend similar to creating a bend at the edge. Select the type of height. Set the height itself. Enable or disable the function of adding material for the jog, and set the freeing corner and the value of coefficient. OK. The next interesting operation I would like to explore is stamp. For this, we will create a sketch. For example, create an arbitrary rectangle. Finish the sketch and activate the stamp command. Select our sketch, both its areas. Change the height to 10. And specify the direction inward. For clarity, press OK. And we'll edit the stamp operation in the 3D history. Type of stamping, open or close, affects whether our stamped element will have a bottom face or not. Let's switch to open stamping. And as we can see, the element has changed. Let's return the type of stamping to close. The height parameter affects the height of our element. The sidewall inside checkbox affects whether the walls are inside or outside of our sketch. If we switch to a top view, as we can see, by changing the selection, the walls of the element are either inside our sketch or outside. The angle parameter affects the tilt of the sidewalls. For instance, set an angle of 7 degrees. The sketch fillet radius parameter effects for rounding radiuses account for the respective external and internal rounding of the element. For example, set a sketch rounding radius of 2, a basic rounding radius of 3. As we can see, the external rounding radiuses have changed. And let's set the bottom rounding radius, for instance, to 5. As we can see, by changing the bottom radiuses, the external radiuses of our element's rounding change. Let's keep it at 5 and finish creating the operation. Let's return to isometry. Thus, with this operation, we can obtain stamping elements on our sheet blank, or in the case where we leave the stamping open, we essentially get a cutout or punch. To demonstrate the next Jalousie command again requires creating a sketch consisting of several parallel lines. Press space to repeat the last command. Finish creating the sketch and use the Jalousie command. In the operation menu, we will select our sketch. We'll enter a width of 8 and a height of 7 mm. Also, in the operation parameters, we can set the rounding radius for edges of the transition, specify the value of coefficient, and the direction of the stamping allows us to change the position of the created elements relative to the sheet. As we see, they are now directed to the opposite side. The next side parameter allows changing the position of the created elements relative to the sketch line. The stretching option allows switching the type of created elements. The height type option, as in previous operations, is responsible for the method of specifying the height of the element, meaning we can specify the full height, height from the face, or internal height. Let's finish creating the element and return to isometry. Similarly, the Bead command works. Select or create a sketch. For instance, let's create an arc. Finish the sketch. Select the Bead command, select our created sketch, and obtain the required element. We can also set the base and bottom fillet radiuses. Also, you can set the angle of inclination of the side edges. Let's try 50 or 30. Below, we can select the stamping direction and specify the type of created bead: V-type, U-type. For U-type, we need to slightly change the parameters. We can also choose round in the type of bead, but for a round bead, the lower fillet radius should be equal to the height. If we set the height to 3, then the lower fillet radius should also be 3. The base fillet radius can be different. The type of ending parameter depends on whether our flange will be chopped or closed. Let's finish creating the command. Thus, using the commands reviewed in this lesson, we can deform our sheet material as we wish, and also obtain a layout on the plane with the help of bend, unbend, or flatten commands. This concludes the lesson dedicated to sheet modeling. Thank you for your attention. See you in the next lesson.